Hello, everyone. I thought today I'd try to describe my journey with trance channeling so far, how I came into the discipline and how it's progressing. So, well, first of all, I think in the last video where I told you my story, I kind of finished on the note where I felt like I had a breakdown or a complete spiritual surrender. So like this final spiritual death where something switched in my nervous system is almost the most exact way to describe it, I feel. And after that, I was feeling really harmonious, and I spent a summer being quite happy, not doing much, being a lot outside and enjoying life and also getting a lot of these epiphanies or downloads, as it's often described in a more modern terminology. Um, so, for instance, I wrote a collection of aphorisms, and my mind felt like at one time very scattered, but at the same time like completely absorbed into everything I was doing. So there was a lot of beautiful communion with the senses in those days, and I think it must have been like a year ago now. So May 2019, I discovered by chance when I walked around outside, I felt enmeshed in this great net of vitality that sort of made up everything. Um, so it's a vibrational net of information, and it's also what is sometimes described as the fifth dimension. And I realized that everything was completely linked within this net. So the birds in the sky, they were part of this net and emitting the information and receiving the information in the same to the same degree I was. And just sort of to experiment, I intuitively tried to switch my consciousness into some of these animals. So mainly crows and ravens, which there are a lot of out here in these woodlands. Um, and I realized that once I did that, I completely went into a sort of other mental state where I felt on my own nervous system the vibration of these animals and the kind of feeling they would have. And my sight, my inner sight, would I would do it with my eyes closed, would switch into this sort of, let us say, not low resolution, but more energetic field like. So if you imagine like a sonar field, so everything as energetic signatures placed with in accordance with each other, and I would see this from the bird's perspective. So that was a very fascinating skill to discover, and it made me communicate a lot with trees and like beetles and animals I encountered over the summer. So that was interesting, and I've always been kind of nervous around bugs, but I also realized that I gained like a completely new camaraderie with nature. So I found myself. I also found myself talking aloud those days, which is fortunately subsiding. But but I found myself like when I went around in the forest, like addressing, oh, there you are, little brother spider. How are you this day? Um, so I gained this like very loving an accepting relationship to the energies and the entities surrounding me, and I'm very fortunate to live in this what you could call like a high vibrational space, or in a like more traditional religious nomenclature you would probably describe it as a place that's very good for contemplation and purgation of the body. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting a lot into Christian mysticism, especially the medieval and Counter Reformation stuff these days. So I'm realizing it's basically the same process they're describing, but they just have a different nomenclature for it. So that's why I really like to toy around with these terms, because if we get into trance channeling, there are some prerequisites to it in your lifestyle, is my experience. Like, of course, anyone who has a loose grip on their own identity can get into the stuff that you might describe as demon possession or split personality disorder, or like, yeah, like classic stereotypical schizophrenia, where people seem sort of possessed by a consciousness that they're unable to control, and they're unable to separate from their own sense of rational discernment. And but it is my impression that trance channelers usually have a meditation practice, and what usually happens is that at some point in this meditation practice, some people who have usually had this type of let us say more fantastic relationship to reality since childhood will be contacted by one or more entities, and these entities will put themselves forward communicating with them. Um, and that's also what happened in my case. The 1st of August last year, I took up a seated meditation practice. I've meditated in a lot of different ways before, but never had like a dedicated seated meditation practice where I sat for 2 times half an hour a day. And what happened on the first session was simply that my entire nervous system lit up, and I had this radiant energy, which is Kundalini energy, but in a way that I had never experienced it before, light up my entire nervous system. And this sacred tree of my spine, the axis mundi, as you describe it in religious science or religious studies, so the center of the world, which is your spine, which is the conductor of all energy. I had this flash of vision within where everything was totally explained and my body lit up. And after that, I had the experience of being able to rest completely in my own body in my meditative states, but also to be contacted by different high vibrational energies. At least I perceive them as such. And I'm also able to interact with other high vibrational energies, but I try to, like aura wise, I try to shield myself from things I don't find are in any way conducive to my own growth or higher spiritual development. Um, but again, to encounter these things, as you may have heard from other channelers, it's or to bring them through or contain them in your body, because what I'm doing is a type of possession or switching out of consciousness, allowing something else um, to incarnate in me for a while. And it does require, is my impression, usually some lifestyle adjustments. So a lot of these things that are usually prescribed in religious or monastic life, um, they kind of turn up as common sense once you enter into like a deep enough spiritual practice or communion with the divine, or whatever you want to call it. So I eat very little meat. I still eat meat sometimes when I feel the need to it, but then I eat meat that I have the sense has had a good life, and I grew up in farm country, so like I know how these animals have, what kind of life they've had, and I basically I don't have any problem like offering an animal and a good life, and then taking it with respect and gratitude at the end. I think is usually the reverse deal of what we offer a lot of human beings. So who seem to have like a very rough time, and then we give them an honorable funeral. And I don't know if that's in any way better, but I do find a need to really consecrate and show thanks to the meat I eat, and I always have the sense when I take something in that I have that channeling experience of it, or that sense of its total energetic signature. So where it's been and its place in the entire cycle of life, which is also, I eat very few processed food. I very rarely eat junk food. Sometimes I do, and I also realize sometimes you just need to bring down that vibration, and it's good to also interact with some of these heavier energies. Um, I've also been celibate for like a year and a half, I think, or something, which has also been very interesting, because That's of course not something you want to force on yourself. That's very unhealthy psychologically. But I've just found that it's been very natural for me to focus my energy and attention somewhere else, and to my surprise, I really don't feel that great of a call towards sexuality, and that has been interesting. But I'm also realizing that these things are processes, and what suits you at one time, diet wise, for instance, or in other cases, that may not suit you at another time. And I think that's very important not to get dogmatic about any of these things. And that's a very great privilege about being able to channel or commune with these energies, is you can basically take their counsel on how you're faring in life, and where perhaps you should put your focus. And that's of course a very great privilege and a joy to have. That doesn't mean it's a superpower, and my life is of course still challenging, because that's how life works. Basically, if you bring life to the end of the game, where you're ready to check out, and you've understood the rules of what's going on, then you will automatically try to encounter or make up some sort of new project or difficulty or uh, calling that you have to live out and put forward in the world. I have had these experiences, I believe, at least twice under very deep meditative states, where I've been, let us describe it as, sort of offered the Mahasamadhi, which means the grand ascension in Sanskrit, but it's basically that you're offered that you could switch off your nervous system and then just let your body die and spiritually check out while still being aware. Um, but I do feel like I have a lot of stuff to do down here still, and like this great creative unfoldment, which I consider this channeling work a great part of. Um, I feel is very important and very engaging. So there is some sense for me that this is a practice that is directed from above, and the prayer in any form or another it may take is always like, here I am, I'm available. Um, and that's what I find I need to do when my own interests or needs to glorify myself, they kind of get in the way of channeling. Uh, that's kind of when I find it harder to connect to a lot of these higher vibrational energies. So it is like a humbling experience, and I really consider it as a service both to myself and to the world, and hopefully to the people. And like sometimes when I get the feedback when I share this, when where I can really sense that it's reaching someone, and it's making a difference in their immediate reality, and maybe like activating some of these, like some of our better instincts in that person, that I'm really grateful to be able to be a vessel and a channel for. So that's very lovely. I also find like it's bringing me into contact with a lot of interesting people, and facing experiences in and out of my system at just the right time. I've had a lot of synchronicities connected to it, both in sessions and with the work, and it always seems like the stuff that needs to come through comes through at the right time. So that is very fascinating, and I truly feel it's a joy to explore it. As you may have gauged, like, I'm a broad trance channeler for some reason. Like, I'm able to use myself as a interstellar radio station. I have found that my trances get deeper and deeper the more I do it, and usually now, when I do it, I feel like I'm present when it happens. I'm completely engaged in the moment, and I sort of have uh, editorial rights, so to speak. Like, I work on an admin in the back, so I'm very engaged in the act of translation, and at the same time, I'm receiving these energies, and I'm being shown pictures, and especially when I do the alien channeling, I'm being shown like very distinct pictures for instance, the worlds they come from that I'm describing. And that's the alien part is also very interesting. Like I was never much a first contactee. I was never waiting for the spaceships to land, or in that way that much into to UFOs or alien encounters. Like I've always had a great interest in the paranormal, and I've always found UFO sightings interesting. But general, it really surprised me when I started having in altered states, having some of these encounters with alien intelligences, and it really surprised me that that during my like the stages, some of the earlier stages of my Kundalini awakening, I would have like spontaneous regressions, and I would regress them through my own life and through my own experience, and then remembering my birth, sort of pass into the womb and then out to like the cosmic consciousness that we all are between incarnations. And in that, I would have recollections from different lives. So I would have recollections from three distinct alien lives, and then before I jump back to life on the planet in the Temple of Karnak, where I have like very clear and distinct memories from undergoing a type of sacrificial ritual some, I would say, 3,700 years ago. Um, so that's so it's been interesting that like connecting to these senses of yes, alien experiences, which obviously to me seem to have the signature of memory, and I've identified like the most recent life seems to me to connect to the entity I channeled recently called the Weavers, and the one before that I had a hard time distinguishing before I realized it was the Arcturians, and now I have like regressions where I can distinctly recall a lot of this Arcturian lifetime, and the Arcturians are very present with me. Um, and honestly, I don't really know what to do with the alien channeling because I'm also very afraid to, or afraid is perhaps not the word, but at least I try to stay conscious of not feeding a sense of escapism in people. So again, I've said this before, but if you're waiting for someone to come in and fix your life, you're going to be disappointed. Like it has never happened to any human in the history of the world that someone else just completely took care of their life and they were happy with it, because that's not how this game works. Like the sense of coming into your own and your authenticity and your own achievement and creation, that is to all of us in every magnificent individualized form it takes. That is what gives life meaning. um, and that's why like I'm afraid when people talk to me about yeah, like getting the spaceships to land, because I my impression is that yeah, I love that, and they will when they're ready, but right now we're here, and we're here because this is the most meaningful thing that could go on. So so try always to, I hope you will see the content I'm sharing, and the content other channelers put forth as a way to enrich and expand your horizon, and a call to your better angels instead of something that you use to escape parts of yourself that you don't want to look at. And of course, uh, we're all always guilty of that to some degree sometime. Um, so that was quite a long talk about trance channeling, but I hope for some of you who have been asking that this might yes, make you a little wiser about how I got here and what I think of the discipline. And it's still developing, and I look forward to sharing more thoughts on it as we progress. I think in the next video in this explanation series, I'll try to explain the techniques of channeling and how you can go about it yourself if that is something you would like to experiment with and which is calling you. So for everyone out there, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for keeping up, and stay strong out there in these tumultuous times. Love is trying to reach all of us.